that this child now can do certain things. For example, running. The child can probably run up to 1 mile, let us say. Now, if I force this child to run more than a mile, that child system goes in what is called stress. And if I make this child run every day now 10 miles, after certain time this child will die quicker than what it could die. So, stress actually means a condition where a part of the system is not able to handle that condition. Another person who is an Olympic runner may be able to run 10 miles a day very quick, easily every day and actually not feeling any stress. So therefore, to say that the environment is stressful is scientifically wrong. Environment is never stressful. Of course, the definition of environmental being stressful means that you are not able to handle that environment, or on an average population is not able to handle that environment, and that what is meant by the stressful environment. But really the basic definition of stress is there is something, whether it is a body part or a organism or whatever it is, or mind, that part is not able to handle the situation under which that part is existing, and due to that it is creating a situation which is adverse to that part. So stress is actually a negative term. Stress is always adverse. There is no good stress and bad stress. Stress is always bad, because stress is defined as something which you cannot handle and should not also handle. A person who cannot lift 50 pounds should not be forced to lift 50 pounds. The only thing will happen, he will get a pain. He will never be able to lift 50 pounds because he is going beyond his capacity. So therefore, it is like saying smoking 1 or 2 cigarettes a day is good. Smoking cigarette is always bad, but smoking 1 or 2 cigarettes a day is better than smoking a whole packet. So therefore, you should never say that there is some good stress and some bad stress. The stress is always bad. Now when we are talking about stress management, why we give the name correct stress management? Because we are actually saying that the correct part there means that we want stress to be removed. We don't want you to be under stress. In the definition which I gave, stress is not required. Should not be there. Now, what is that we are going to cover in our stress management will come later on, and how to remove the stress. So the correction required is removal of stress, not management of a stress. Stress should never be managed. It's not like that you have $5 instead of $50 and you are trying to use that $5 for whatever you did. The stress should never exist, because stress exists means that your system becomes less efficient than what it was. Then you will have more stress with the same amount of environment, and you will actually in a dying stage. So therefore the stress means, you can call the stress is like opposite of health. That means if you are going in a stressful environment, you are becoming unhealthy and your end is coming soon. So now I gave you a definition of health, yoga and stress. And if you have any questions related to the topic, you can raise your hand and then we'll discuss that. Now
you're going to try and get rid of stress in life.
We are interested in a person getting, there are 2 parts of a person. One part of the person is, actually there was a prayer of serenity which somebody presented, which came downstairs, and it says that God, please give me courage to accept or something, or do whatever I want. There are 3 parts in it, and I noticed this because I just thought about my seminar. But what happens is the person has 2 parts. One is, there is something called voluntary. That means now I can raise my hand. This is in my hand. But if I want to place my brain out of my body, now it's not in my hand. So that means the person has 2 parts. One is in the person's hand and the other one is not possible for that person. If the person tries to do impossible thing, then that will take him to the stress. So therefore, when we say a stress removal, it automatically means that whatever is possible for that person, whatever is possible in that person's hand. For example, a person is living in, let's say, in a very dirty place in Bombay, and he has no other place to live, and he believes that there is no other place to live. That means His mental level currently is that he feels he doesn't have a chance to go to North Carolina mountains, and he has to live in that state. That's the only way he can get food and clothing, which is the more important than actually any other thing in the for body health. So now this person is in an environment where he cannot change the environment, and therefore the only thing that person can do is whatever is possible. Now, as I told you that there is a person has got three parts in our system: body, mind, and spirit. And later on, when we are going to cover this, actually, the stress is more related to the mind and not to the body, because the outside environment you cannot really change. The only thing you can change is your own mind. And when we say that stress can be removed totally, get rid of it completely, what we are saying is that if the person trains his or her mind properly, he will be able to get rid of the stress completely. And actually completely in the sense of this, that now it comes to the spiritual side, and I have to explain this, that there is a body. If you buy a book of aphorisms, which we wrote as a third book called Aphorism, it says perfect bodily health is impossible, and that results in death. Because if the person is perfectly bodily healthy, the person will never die. Similarly, a person's mental health cannot be perfect, because if person is mentally perfectly healthy, his concentration is 100%, his intelligence is 100%, then all the things in the nature will be completely known to that person, and there will be no research required. The fact that the person is doing research, I explained this in one of my seminars, that the fact that you are doing a research is a sign of ignorance and not sign of knowledge. People think that people who are doing research is very knowledgeable. Not really, because if you are doing research means you are not knowledgeable. So in the field of health, the knowledge comes only by experience. So therefore, if you do a lot of research in laboratory, you do not get the knowledge of health. When you start doing it, you come to know what the health really means. Now, in mental, what happens is that there is a limit to the mental health or understanding. So therefore, even if the person tries his mind, trains his mind very good and goes into a meditative stage, there is a little bit of stress level left. And the only way you can get rid of the stress is to get rid of material aspect of your life. And body and mind are material aspects of the life. If you can get into totally spiritual, and that is totally covered by this seminar towards the end of it, is that if you can get into a spiritual life, your stress level immediately drops down. And then in spiritual also there is actually a mental part playing, because until you are devoted to whatever you want to call it, nature or God, until you actually become saintly person, you are still on a mental level. And until you go to that spiritual aspect, you will have some stress. The only way to get rid of stress completely is to go into a state called superconscious in English, or in Sanskrit it is called samadhi. That means if you go into the samadhi state, then there is no thought in your mind. And Patanjali, who was one of the greatest yoga teachers around 400 BC, he's defined the whole yoga in one line. Yogas chitta vritti nirodha means yoga is cessation of a fluctuation of a mind wave. If there is no mind wave in your system when you are awake, that is a state of yoga. That means that's the final goal which I try to see. That's where the yoga, mind and the spirit merge. So when a person is sleeping, actually I explained this in one of my seminars, that sleeping is actually a superconscious state. And therefore in the sleeping, even today's research, which is a physical, you have to understand one thing, that the physical research will never give you full knowledge, because the physical system is using an instrument which is worse than the human mind. So to know a human mind, you have to use at least a system which is as powerful as the human mind. It is not possible for a unmarried girl to know what happens after the childbirth. It's not possible, because she is not yet qualified for that. So therefore when you use an instrument, you have to be very careful. If you use an instrument like a robot to imitate a human being, it's not possible. Always a higher level instrument can produce a lower level instrument. That's why you can never create a God, or no way. God created people, people cannot create a God. So therefore there is only one God, because if a God creates